And then a higher grit number, so something like 220 grit, would be a finer grit that leaves a smoother finish. So if you want to remove a bunch of material, use something like 60 grit, and that'll just munch through material. And then if you want a something to leave a smoother finish, perhaps remove rust, something like that, then you would use a higher number. We will have some belts on hand, but we're not going to guarantee that they're in great shape all the time, especially with metal. You can go through belts pretty quickly. If someone's making knives, for example, you are going to need to buy your own belts. We can recommend places to buy them. Combat abrasives is a good one. And then the size is important. So again, this is 1 inch by 42 inches in length. That's its full circumference. And that's all the information that you need. There's a whole world of sandpaper, all the different kinds. You're welcome to do all that research. In general, you don't need anything crazy. This is an aluminum oxide belt, which is like a pretty standard run-of-the-mill belt. Some of them will have arrows on it, so we can look at that for when you're putting the belt on. I'm just going to unplug it while we're working on this. It just has a switch on the front, so it'll be kind of easy to accidentally turn on. So I'll just test it to make sure it's off. So this is spring-loaded, so when you're taking this off, you just want to have a hand on top and then loosen the screw in the back. And now it's loose, so we'll take this front piece off so you can see. I'm going to push down and remove the belt and release slowly. So now that's off. We have our belt. This belt still has a little life left in it. Not a ton. It's probably a lower grit than it was, but it's just an aluminum oxide belt. It doesn't say anything, and terribly interesting, but it doesn't have a direction on it. Some will have arrows, and you want to make sure the belt is spinning this way. You want to make sure the arrows line up so they're pointing in that direction. So you're going to put this on. Make sure that the grit is facing outwards. You don't want the grit facing inwards. There's a rubber wheel on the bottom, which is the drive side. And this is a pretty good, well, I mean, you'll hear when it's spinning, it's a pretty well-balanced machine, meaning anything that has spinning parts, if it is imbalanced, if one side of something's heavier than another, it'll rattle a bunch. This is pretty well balanced, and you can even see here on this rubber wheel that they did a balancing process on the rubber. So they drilled a little hole there because this side was a little heavier, so they made it lighter, and so now it spins really nicely. So that's just one sign that this is a pretty good quality tool. So again, I'm going to push down on this and get it in front of the platen. This is an example of an arbor. If you watch the arbor press video, so this pulley or this wheel was pushed onto an arbor. To remove it, you'd use the bearing puller. But now you can see it's not terribly well aligned. So you can spin it a little bit by hand, and because it's spring-loaded, it's tensioning itself. And this is pretty wide, so that's not a great indicator. The better indicator is on the bottom. So I'm just going to spin this by hand until it's sitting right in the middle. Oh, and what I'm adjusting is this angle. So I'm twisting this. So right now, if I spin it, it's off to the right a little bit. So I'm turning to the left, and now right about in the middle, so I'm just going to tighten up on this screw. And now we'll switch it on once I plug it back in. Close this guy, and we can see that it is spinning the right direction. Go. So these are, we'll turn it on. So it's sitting pretty well centered, so that's good. You can hear the drill press rattling, but this itself is pretty balanced, and once it's clamped onto a table, it'll be really good. So for cutting or grinding material, first we'll look at how you can do it on the platen. So again, I'm going to use my hand to modulate. Going straight across. Now it has a nice shiny end, but it still has this burr, especially on the bottom edge. So you want to make sure you're pointed downwards. Point up, it'll just grab and slam downwards. So you can have this angle going around. And I'm using the soft part without the hard back to get a nice smooth edge. If I was down here, there would be sharp edges on the corners. Just going like that. And now the burrs are all gone. If you look closely, you can see it's rounded over just a little bit. You can do the other side just for yucks. pretty much it. Once you feel like you have to push to get it to cut, or you feel like it's just smooth, there's no grit left, and that's a good time to change the paper. But that's about in terms of PPE. Obviously, glasses. If you're doing a bunch of grinding, a mask is a good idea. You don't want to be inhaling a bunch of dust. If you're doing one quick deburr, you don't need to put on a mask. Ears, it's obviously not very loud. Gloves, in general, we're not using them. In this, welding obviously is a different story. So you just risk of something getting pulled in there. We don't want to mess around with. And that's the story. Thanks for watching.